top. Guys, hey, live Q&A, session 9. How's it going? How's it going? There's a crazy hurricane. Hurricane Irma. It's fucking shit up right now. So all my East Coast babies, be safe. All my Florida babies. Jay Vasmati, you were saying that you were dealing with some stuff. Dude, be safe, of course. Also, Sivrak's Revenge. You said you were also in Florida. So I was watching you guys. I was watching you guys pass notes during the class. I watch you guys. I think I don't always see you, but I see you. But yeah, so everybody be safe. Okay. And also, let me address a couple things from the chat before we get started. I'm going to do things a little differently today. Somebody was talking about how they should have an animated Dune series. I saw that comment in this comment section, and I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. I think that's the only way you could really do it justice. I don't know why we're all so obsessed with live action. I think that this would really lend itself to a longer animated series. I think it'd be really fucking cool.
Why?
Well, because it's just such a crazy budget thing. Like, it's just so... You need such a budget for this, and I don't think that there's a wide enough audience to justify the budget you would need for a live action version of this. But I think that there's definitely enough money out there. There's definitely an audience for an animated version, and you could do it justice. Like, you could do it justice, and the fans, there's enough fans out there for that. So I think that's a really great idea. Yeah. You're right. And I've been watching a lot of anime lately too. So I like anime style stuff. Like, let's do something really cool. I just watched Perfect Blue. I just watched Perfect Blue yesterday. I was like I bought Perfect Blue on Blu-ray, and I was like, all right, I thought I was being like really smart. I bought this disc from Japan, and then I got it, and then I was like realized this is a Japanese disc. And now, yes, this Blu-rays, it is like the Japan region is the same region as the United States. So it wasn't a region locked disc, so I can play it. But the problem is that it doesn't have English subtitles. There are no English subtitles. So I'm like, fuck. And I've seen this movie a really long time ago, and I watched it yesterday. And I watched it all in Japanese. I'm getting ready. I'm trying to go to Japan next year. I'm like trying to gear up for that. So, I'm getting excited. So I was like watching this movie all in Japanese, and I really understood it. It was a lot of fun, and you guys should totally check that out. So I did that. I did some Death Note yesterday. I did some Death Note as well. You guys should also check that out. Netflix has a really shitty live action version of the movie that's like not the deal. Watch the show. Also, one more thing I want to announce before we get into it. I saw It. I've seen It, Stephen King's It. I have a shirt that says Stephen King Rules. Someone actually sent this to me. One of my viewers sent this to me, so thank you, Internet. Internet, you guys sent me this shirt. And I've read the book. I read the book a while ago. And I grew up with the miniseries. I remember when I was a kid, I watched the miniseries. So this, like, It was like one of my favorite horror things when I was a kid. It really scared me, but it was like really awesome. And then later on, I was like old enough to read the book, and I read the book, and the book was like even better. And I was like, holy shit. And then I've been hearing they've been trying to develop this It movie for like a lot of for many years. And like Cary Fukunaga was originally going to direct. I was super stoked on that. Things fell through with him. Now we got this new guy. I was like, I would rather see the Cary Fukunaga one. I saw this one. It was just okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like The Dark Tower. At least it wasn't the fucking Dark Tower. The Dark Tower was such garbage. Like if I was Stephen King, I would sue them for damaging my brand. That's how like bad I think that Dark Tower was. It just like no one's ever gonna want to read the book from watching that shitty movie. Whereas with this, I feel like a lot of people are gonna want to read the book because they saw the movie. Because it's even scarier. If you like the movie, if you like this movie, dude, read the book. Like, the book will fucking blow your mind. It's, like, ridiculous. So, here's a public service announcement for everybody. Read it. Read it. I mean, you can watch it, but definitely read it, too, because Stephen King rules. So, also, I saw in the chat someone talking about the romance novels of Dune romance novels, I would totally read Duncan and Marbella's romance novel. Oof. Duncan and Marbella have really hot sex. It is a thing in the books. It's amazing. Also, Gurney does get with Lady Jessica, but later. It's like not while Leto was alive. It's like it's implied. You never get a scene with them really, but like you know that they're totally doing it. So that is totally a thing. And yeah, okay. Well, let's get into it with session 9. I'm gonna start with some Patreon questions, and then you know, we'll see where that takes us. Playing it real fast and loose today. Real fast and loose. I mean, boop. I have this awesome Patreon app. It's really helpful. Helps me keep up with things a lot better. Okay, let's see here. All right, we got 16 questions on there so far. Cool. All right, so let's start with Pierre Jerome. Hey, sorry I was late with my questions today. I'm a little bit of a mess, guys. I'm a little bit of a mess, but it's like a hot mess, like where it's like a kind of fun mess, but it's still a mess. So I'm just kind of like I said, just gonna have fun with it. Just if you're ever a mess, just like be like, okay, just commit to it. Be a crazy person. It's totally fine. What's the worst thing that's gonna happen? All right, first question. As we finish Muad'Dib, the book 2, while we had a couple of big revelations, most of this second book within a novel felt like almost filler wandering of the desert, and with rather impersonal, lesser threats than the Harkonnen plot of the first book. This setup middle feels more like exposition. Do you think it is a weaker writing or just a usual softer middle act in a 3-part story structure? Well, okay. Okay, you're right. The second book is, there's not as much action. I mean, there are a lot of things that go on, but these are internal things that are happening, okay? Because, in my opinion, why this works for me is I think that Frank Herbert, so you have the death of, like, the fall of House Atreides in Act 1, right? They are currently in the midst of being reborn. They're like in their eggshell, okay? And so they're wandering through the desert. They're finding the Fremen. They're having these internal awarenesses, they're having their consciousnesses raised during this time, but they're not making outward moves, you know, like because they can't, because they're in the rebirth phase. They're in the phase that comes before. Like even in this past session, you had Lady Margot say, you know, let me recount to you the tale of the Phoenix someday, you know, when she's talking to Fenring. And the Phoenix is absolutely what's going on here. You know, you have a death, then you have the gestation period, accumulation, and then you have your rebirth. So, and I also like that it is like a wandering in the desert. Like I like that it slows down and you have to like wander with them because they're like they're on this night journey where they don't know what the fuck they're doing. I mean, Jessica just took the water of life and had no fucking clue exactly what she was doing. Like she was like, oh, maybe this is similar to the Reverend Mother thing within the Bene Gesserit. I don't know, you know, maybe it's not, maybe it's just some bullshit. Like, who knows? You know, she had fucking no clue and she was just like, went for it, you know? But, yeah, so I like it. I like it. And like his story structures, they don't ever really, I don't think they ever follow like a ready-made thing. I mean, I think that all of his story structures, because some of them, it's like build up, build up, build up, build up. And then you're like getting to the last 100 pages and you're like, okay, how the fuck is he going to resolve this in 100 pages? You know, like there's just so much build up and then like a release. And then there's other ones that are just more like wandering in the sand. I think that Dune Messiah and Children of Dune are ones where they're like, Children of Dune, there's more action, but Dune Messiah, it's like the period after, you know, when Paul wins the throne. Now you get to see him carrying the burden of the Imperium upon him, you know, and it is a burden being a king of the universe. Like, it's like Robert's Rebellion. Like, Robert, oh my God, so much fun to win the Empire, so much fun to take down, you know, the Mad King and take over. But then once you're the king, it's like, oh, fuck, like, what did I sign up for? Like, this is a lot, you know? So, okay, moving on. You have a second question. I have a million more questions, but I'll keep it short. Finishing with the water of life, how many recreational drugs has Frank Herbert tried, and how has that affected his writing story-wise and style-wise? I have looked actively on the internet for information about Frank Herbert doing drugs. I have looked for like interviews a little bit. I've looked around. I haven't really found anything. Like I don't think that Brian has ever been like, yeah, my dad was totally tripping. Maybe he has. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't read his autobiography Dreamer of Dune, but the thing is it's told from his perspective, and like as a parent, he may not have let his son in on his tripping experiences, you know, like maybe he kept that to himself and he like didn't want his kid involved in that. So like maybe Brian didn't see that side of his father, so he may or may not know about it, but I don't know. You guys can let me know if I'm wrong. But the only thing I have found is that somebody was talking about Frank Herbert, and I found this when I was like looking Frank Herbert mushrooms, because like I found out he was a mushroom farmer. He was really interested in farming all sorts of things. He had his own tried to have his own self-sustaining house like out in the woods. Very ecologically friendly dude. And he was such an avid fan of mushrooms, of growing them, that he even came up with a way to take a specific mushroom and grow it. Like people didn't know how to like cultivate them. They knew that they grew wild, but they didn't know how to like fucking do that. And he like took a bunch of them, like these mushrooms, and tore them up or something and put them in some water and like made a slurry, and then you like put that slurry on the bottom of a tree or something, and then that's like will get them to grow. It was this whole thing. And so there's like within the mushroom community, Frank Herbert has made advances of the science of mushroom farming. Okay, so it's like if this guy is advancing the science of mushroom farming, like, and so anyway, so this mushroom guy was like talking about his experience with Frank Herbert. And he was like, yeah, I mean, he had to have. Like, I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was just like, yeah, he was like really, he was into mushrooms. Like, he was totally into that shit. So I feel like, yes, he absolutely was. He was writing this during the 60s. I think like LSD didn't really come in until the 60s. I don't know exactly what year all that kind of hit the streets or when that was kind of being flourished around. But I mean, mushrooms have been around because they're fucking mushrooms. They're ancient. They've been around for forever. So of course you'd have access to that sort of stuff. So I don't know, but I've never seen him like specifically talking about it. I don't know if he ever did or not. He may have, but I haven't found anything. But yeah, so he totally was affected by that. You can't write, I mean, you can't write this sort of stuff you can't write about people tripping if you've never tripped yourself. Like you can't. You know, that's why like I get frustrated when I see, like when I watch like movies or shows and they're like, oh, this is how people trip, like when they have somebody on drugs in a show or a movie and they'll always show like, this is what it's like. It's so crazy. And I can immediately tell whether the people who made this scene have actually ever tripped or not. Like I can immediately tell. It's like, no, you think it's just like, ooh, weird things just come out of nowhere and you're talking to ghosts and like you think it's like everything around you isn't completely different. Like you're still in this like a place. You're not like in some I mean, not to say you can't get fucked up and go into some place that's like you don't see this anymore, but it's kind of rare. And so yeah, I think like tripping is really misrepresented, but not in this book. Like Frank Herbert really writes it well. He really writes it really well. Like Jessica going inside her body and like seeing the molecules, she's able to see them, and because she's studied them, she knows about them and she knows how they look, and she's like, oh, this looks like an oxygen fucking thing, and then just like, oh, it's so fucking crazy. It's like really cool. All right, let's move on to our next question. David says, hi CBG19, Dune Club has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you, David. Thank you so much for doing this. It is a highlight next to flight training of each week. Awesome flight training. I know some people who fly planes. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I agree with your pivoting to doing more in-depth content, and it has been really more inspiring, life-changing for me as a filmmaker and pilot. Continue to do what you're doing and not what these other channels are doing. No problem. Let's see here. I've watched your videos on repeat, which is countless hours of inspiration and intelligence. Greater Creators was an incredible venture, and I watched Jodorowsky, Frazetta, Miyazaki, Moore, and Kubrick videos on multiple occasions. So I'm glad you liked it. We worked really fucking hard on it. So keep doing what you're doing. It's incredible, inspiring. Love your outfits and your pre-Dune club videos. They've been remarkable beauty to them and really set them good. Well, thank you. There's no question, David, in this, you guys. I was just reading it as I went. But thank you for the compliments. I think this is... Dune Club has been really interesting for me. It's been something that I didn't know exactly what I was getting into when I did this. I didn't know exactly what this show was going to turn into. I was just like, I just want to do Dune Club. I don't know exactly how it's going to materialize, but I'm making this action because whatever it is going to be awesome. And so it's turned into a thing where it's, you know, I make these pre-recorded videos. Like I have to read the thing, read the session, think about it, write a script. The script takes like all day to write one of these because you have to like really like break it down. It's like, oh, it's a lot. And then we have to do a day of shooting where we shoot the script because I just do like a scripted thing for this because it's just a lot of information. And then the next day we have to edit it, and then today we put it on live. And so, and I've been trying to do like 2 sessions, like get 2 sessions done so we can like write both scripts that week and then like film them both together. But I've just been like, it's a lot, so I haven't been able to do it. I've just been doing like 1 a week. I was supposed to get 2 done this week, but I didn't. If you saw my, if you're on Patreon and you saw my diary, my last diary, yeah, spoilers, I didn't write session 10, but I've read it, and yeah, and I feel like a lot of people, we've seen a lot of people leaving our channel and unsubscribing, and I think Dune Club is getting people to unsubscribe. It's pissing certain people off within the community, which makes me love it even more. Because it's like, yeah, get rid of that fucking dead weight. Get out of here. Because you know what is more important than me talking about Game of Thrones, which is just like a fan fiction show? Talking about like getting people to read a book and like reading a book with people. Like that's really intimate. It's really fun. I think that's like everyone wants to talk about these stories and these properties and these characters, but nobody actually just wants to read the fucking book. Like you would like read the book, read where it came from, dude. Like it's like let's go to the fucking source, you know. So doing this with you guys, going to the source with you guys has been really awesome. My channel has not benefited from it in certain ways, but in other ways, like I've spiritually benefited from it, and I think that you guys have been spiritually benefiting from it. So yeah, I mean that goes with the whole pivoting thing of like quality over quantity. I'm not trying to go out of my way to do what trying to guess what the majority of my viewers would want, because I have so many different types of viewers on YouTube. I don't have one type of person who subscribes to my channel. I have a lot of different types of people who are here for a lot of different types of content. You know, you have movie people, you have comic book people, you have Game of Thrones people, you have I don't know, like normies, you have weird edgelords, you have, you know, Pepes, you have like, you got everybody follow it like it's the internet, you know, and so I've attracted a weird group. And so, you know, I just kind of have to do what I want to do. And so I wanted to do Dune Club. So I'm doing it and I'm loving it. And thank you guys for going on this journey with me. You guys have been like my, you're like my Fata King, you know, where it's like you train the 100 in the weirding way. And then they go out and they train the thousands that are left. And then at some point, the Emperor will have to deal with us, you know, like, fuck you, you know, or it's like, this is important. Reading Dune is important. All this shit on Fox News and everything else, like CNN, it's not important. Like, Dune Club. All right, moving on. Bobby McIntyre says, are we going to still read Dune Messiah? Or how about, if not, we do the awesome book Stephen King's It, more Dune Club or It Club? Okay, Bobby. Well, again, if you're of my Team 19 members on Patreon, you already know this. If you watch my diary series where I spill the beans on there, I tell them what's going on. Mostly I'm just a crazy person. I'm just a real crazy person in those videos. So, our next book club. Okay, keep it under, just keep it to yourselves a little bit because this is like a not formal announcement. But our next book club is going to be Alan Moore's Watchmen. Who watches the Watchmen Club, baby? We do! We're reading the fucking Watchmen together. It's gonna be awesome. Right now I'm putting together a Watchmen box, like the Dune Club box. It's creating it with the artist Matthew Skiff. Look him up. He's amazing. We're creating some awesome stickers where like Robot's the comedian and Brain is like the owl and Beans is Silk Spectre and I'm Ozymandias. It's so cool. It's so cute. We're gonna have a fucking like box. It's gonna look so sick. And we're going to start our pre-sale for the Watchmen box October 1st on our final Dune Club day. Tentatively. This may change. That's why I like don't, you know, this isn't written in stone. This is an informal, you know, secret announcement. So, yeah, secret public announcement. So, yeah, we're going to do Watchmen Club and then reading Watchmen. We're going to start reading it together in February because it takes me a few months to order thousands of books, get them in, and then package them all up and then send them out. And then we'll read about it. And also in January, it's Tyson's birthday, and it's also my birthday. It's both of our birthdays in the month of January. So we're going to take that month off and fucking kick it, man. Fucking kick it and just have birthday shenanigans. Try not to go nuts working crazy. We'll probably have some exclusive videos for you guys on Patreon, but like we're going to go dead on YouTube for a minute because fuck, man, it's going to be a lot. We got a lot of stuff planned for like the rest of this year. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm planning it already. I've worked a whole. Everybody usually takes off in December, but we're gonna take off January. Anyways, we might go home. I don't know. We gotta go visit some people. But also, I do want to. But okay, so Watchmen Club. Watchmen Club's happening. It's super exciting. I do, however, want you guys to read Stephen King's It. I'm thinking about reading it again myself. Actually, like after Dune Club. I'm just going to casually read it. Maybe we'll just casually read it and I'll come on Twitch at some point and we'll like have some meetings and talk about it or something if you guys want to do something cash. But I got to get Dune Club out of the way first before I can start reading a new book. So, yeah. So maybe we'll do It Club after this just informally. We'll see. You know, there's a lot of things in place, a lot of things that we're still figuring out. It's like a crazy time. So when it's a crazy time, like don't commit yourself to anything. Just like, you know, we all float until we figure it the fuck out, and then we get it done, and we make a move, and we tell you about it. Okay, moving on. Matthew Raymond asks, how is the Bene Gesserit voice related to neuro-linguistic programming? Well, Matthew, if you are interested in Bene Gesserit techniques, I would highly recommend looking into neuro-linguistic programming. NLP is what it's called. I have a book on it, but I like started to read it, but I was like, whoa, this is too much. And my brain is already working on other projects and I only have so much, what is it? Bandwidth. I only have so much mental bandwidth that I didn't have time to like get into all this because it's like, it's a whole thing. But neuro-linguistic programming is definitely a way to like life hack yourself and life hack other people using simple techniques like remembering people's names, you know, and like when to use their name and when to touch them while using their name. And like if you do these things, like it gets people to respond to you. And there's also lots of other weird stuff where you can like hack yourself. So it's interesting. It's got a lot of interesting stuff in there. I don't think it's like, there's definitely some stuff you can learn from it. I don't know. I haven't done enough of a study to tell you whether it's, you know, I'm sure there's some bullshitty stuff in there too, but it's definitely like, I think that the voice, if you were familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, then yeah, the voice would definitely come into it. Because also with neuro-linguistic programming in the voice, it's not only like how you say, but what you say. And so like if you want someone to remember something, you need to say it to them 3 times, but you have to make it, if you just like put it, like when you're talking to them in a conversation, you just like say it and then make sure to say it somewhere in the middle and then say it again at the end. And then that'll get recorded in their subconsciousness. Like it's a thing that actually really works on a lot of people. Any other weird NLP stuff? I'm trying to think of like NLP. But it's not a magic. Well, it's not a magic power. It's the weirding way. It's something that looks like a magic power, but it's not. But you also have to be careful with it because, like, if certain, like, I know people, like, douche people that, like, look into that stuff. Like, there's a lot of douchey people who look into NLP. Like, people who want to control other people and influence them for their own, like, creepy benefit, like picking up chicks, like the guys who do the pickup artist stuff. That's like a form of NLP, like where they're misusing these things on these girls. But at the same time, whatever, like if a guy in a big fuzzy hat, if you're like, I don't know, that shit doesn't work on me. Like that shit is like, that pickup artist shit has never, not to say that someone can't like flirt with me and like do a good job, but it's not those guys. Those guys are not the ones that I'm like, hey, you. Well, they're out there. They're definitely in Hollywood. I mean, they're in LA. Those type of guys are in LA. It's somebody that you do kind of deal with. Jake asks, how is it possible for the Reverend Mother and Jessica to share consciousness? I thought Reverend Mothers only gained the ability to unlock their genetic pasts. And also, how was she able to make the water of life non-poisonous afterwards? I'm also confused about why Paul wasn't able to unlock his male and female lineage after taking the spice in the last chapter. P.S. I've watched every episode of The Greater Creators and I'm in Canada, so people have been able to watch it outside the States. Good. It was a good show. Looking forward to more projects from you guys.
You watched it in Canada?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they watched it. Well, he was saying that, I don't know, Jake, if you're saying that you did a tunnel bear thing where you had, what is it called? He could have done that thing. I don't know. Okay, so back to your question. So, okay, this is something now I'm realizing too, because there are a couple things that I feel like they go back and forth in the books. I'm a little confused on myself. Like, okay, so in this specific ceremony, I don't know if this is the same as the Bene Gesserit ceremony, and Jessica thinks it's probably similar, but it's still like not exactly the same. I know that when the head of the Bene Gesserit, when that Reverend Mother dies, the Mother Superior, she definitely passes on her knowledge to her successor, so that all of the fucking Mother Superiors of the Bene Gesserit order are all in one person. This consciousness continues on. It's like this chain. You become a link in this chain. And so, but the thing is to become a Reverend Mother, you don't have to gain someone else's memories. Like, that's what I think is different. Like, because I remember when Shiana and when Merbella becomes a Bene Gesserit, she doesn't have to, like, sync her awareness, or a Reverend Mother. She doesn't have to sync her awareness with a dying Reverend Mother. Like, that's something that's a little different for Jessica. So, yes, Jessica, I believe, she's now unlocked her own stuff, but in addition to that, the old Reverend Mother has just made her a link in the chain of consciousnesses of all the other past Reverend Mothers of the Fremen people. And also, how is she able to make the water of life non-poisonous afterwards? Well, like I was saying, she is able to look at the shit inside her body on a cellular level. She's studied chemistry. She knows what these compounds look like. And she goes, oh, I know how to change this, because she knows, she has science knowledge. She changes this thing into a chemical that now becomes a catalyst that changes all of the poison, which turns it into something that's not harmful. And in fact, at some point, she's like, I could even go further and keep changing this to where the drug effects will go away and I'm not going to be high anymore. But then she's like, you know what, that's not cool, because everyone's getting high right now and I need to be high with them, and that's like a bonding ritual, so I'm not gonna harsh my own buzz. You know, she could have like destroyed her own buzz, but she's like, no, I'm gonna let this train keep going, which is, yeah, like she should have. She did the right thing. And so you ask why Paul wasn't able to unlock his male and female lineage upon taking the spice in the last chapter. Well, he hasn't taken the water of life. Paul has still yet to take the water of life, kiddos, all right? Like, that has not happened yet. And so when that happens, like, that's an even, like he's already like, and then like he takes the water of life, and then he's just like, like he's just a fucking madman. He's just like out there, super out there. But we'll get to that in book 3. So Simon Arsenault says, regarding a possible movie or TV adaptation of Dune, is there any particular musician or composer you think would be best suited to make the music to watch the world created by Frank Herbert? Similar question is there any music you listen to while reading Dune, or is this book best read in complete silence to fully absorb the story? Tyson, do you have any composers that you think would make good composers?
The movie will hire Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer? That's such a basic. We gotta have somebody better than that.
Better than that.
I mean, Hans Zimmer's good, but I don't know. You know, here's something. Okay, let's just like skip back to It for just a second. That was a complaint about It that I had. So I felt like the music was too much, like the soundtrack in it. It was like it kept telling you how to feel. I don't like these. I like compositions that don't tell you how to feel. I like compositions that create an atmosphere, that set a mood, set a tone. Like set a tone, but don't just like tell your audience exactly how they're supposed to be feeling with the music. Anyways.
Well, it's a balancing act. It's the visuals and the...
Well, it is a balancing act. It is a balancing act. But I felt like they were doing that way too much in It. But yeah, I don't know who exactly I would get for the composer. I'd have to think about that. But I think, you know what would be really cool? Oh, I got it. M83, actually, I think should do some fucking Dune music. Because the last Dune movie had some fucking sick-ass music, okay, for the time. Like, Toto was doing it, and, like, it was fucking crazy. I love the Toto soundtrack. So I think that we need to get, like, somebody like M83, get some people like Daft Punk on it. Like, let's get some fucking awesome peeps on there. Let's get some of those people. I'm tired of these composers with their fucking, let's get some, like, beat, you know? Anyways, maybe some Air. I just love those French weirdos. Air and Daft Punk and what's their name? Her. I've been listening to some Her lately. It's kind of some jazz funk stuff. Man, like France just has the jazz funk thing going on.
The person inspired by Dune.
Well, yeah, obviously you want to get somebody who's inspired by Dune. That is really important. That is really important.
All these people like, who should direct the next Star Wars movie? Let's get Spielberg on it. Spielberg wouldn't want to make a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, you gotta find someone
inspired by it, not your.
Yeah, that's true. You need to find someone who's inspired by it. That's for sure. You need to find someone who is a space brain dork about Dune. Yeah. You know, who's like, oh, Dune, and then get them to make a composition. Yeah. Oh, what's her name? You could get Grimes. You could get Grimes on that soundtrack. Get her. She's into it. She did a whole album called Geedy Primes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then the other question: do I listen to music while reading Dune? I was trying to listen to music while reading Dune the other day, and it kind of just got in the way. I do have this white noise called Cosmic White Noise or something. I like to play that while I read it because I listen to that while I'm asleep. So I'll like put that on and then read the book before I go to bed. And I just like having that on in the background. C. Manuel asks, first, I just want to say that I've been enjoying Dune Club more and more every session, and that reading the book with you is way more instructive than the last time I read it by myself. Good. That's why I'm doing this. I hope that this is working because I don't know. Is this working? Like, I hope it is. I think it is. It's interesting how in this session it's clear that the chapter where Paul kills Jamis, or Jamis, I'm probably saying it wrong, and the one where Fade fights the slave are intended to be next to each other so that you can juxtapose and compare both characters. Even Lady Fenring makes a comment about what would have happened if Fade was born in Atreides. Both Paul and Fade are going through similar stuff, but in a different way. Both have just become a man, are being accepted by the people around them, and are getting prepared to become leaders. While I was reading the Harkonnens chapter, I remembered that in one of the first sessions you mentioned that the Baron has sexual relations with Fade. I don't know if I'm reading between the lines or not, but I can't find a consistent clue of this statement. If it's the case, this relationship between the Baron and his nephew reminds me of Greek pederasty, which was a socially acknowledged erotic relationship between an adult male who served like kind of mentor and a teenage male who was the apprentice. This relationship would continue until the boy grew and reached manhood. What do you think about the Baron's relationship with his nephew? Do you think Fade's aggressiveness and disinhibition towards killing could be a reflection of this situation, or is it just the way he is? Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, C. Manuel, because there was a deal in ancient Greece. They did have a deal in ancient Greece where you had these older dudes, and they were, you know, whether they were philosophers or statesmen or whatever the fuck, you know, it was socially acceptable to have a teenage dude be your boyfriend kind of, and like he's like the sugar daddy, you know, or like the guy just, except it's like knowledge. It's like a knowledge daddy. You'd have a knowledge daddy, like knowledge daddy would tell baby all about knowledge until baby grew up and then he went off and then he would kind of do the same thing. And so, and I think that this relationship, like, I don't know, you know, I'm not a teenage boy. I'm not a dude, you know, maybe in certain situations it can work. Maybe in other situations it doesn't work. I think it depends on the people. I think it depends on the exact situations going on. You can't really, you know, it probably works for some people, but for some people it doesn't. And it doesn't work for Fade. That's the thing. It's like, this is not a situation that's chill for him. Like, he does not, because his uncle's fucking gross. It's like, his uncle, even if he were to be into that man-boy relationship thing, it's like, not with this fucking gross guy. He's fat and disgusting and like just, ugh, like he's not cute. He's not the mentor you'd want if you were into that. So, but he deals with it because he has to. He doesn't really have a choice in the matter. I mean, he just has to deal. He just has to deal with it. And so that's why he's an asshole. And that's why he likes to kill people, is because he has a lot of rage as to what's being done to him because he doesn't agree with it. And if he was under his own volition, he would not let this happen to him. He would not be doing this sort of stuff. And so he has a lot of anger. He's like at the core of his being, he's like angry at being raped by his fat, disgusting uncle. So that's why he's poisoned by this rage. And, you know, the uncle knows this. I mean, he knows that, like, Fade isn't into it. And that's the whole thing. It's a power thing, you know, like the Baron loves having power over people. So it's like this power he has over Fade. But, you know, it's like, yeah, it's just not the deal. It's just not the deal for him. So, you know, if Fade had been in a better situation, he would have been a way cooler guy because he does have the genetics. I mean, he's like hot and lithe and like strong and fast, and you know, he's smart. He's not as smart as Paul, you know, but like he could be, like, he's not an idiot. He's not a dum-dum. But just in this environment, you know, he's just been twisted. He's just been twisted by this fucked up environment, you know, and his uncle's just like, ugh, he's just the word. He's just decadency to like the 10th power, you know, and that just shows you like the corruption, the rot that is at the core of the Imperium. Is even though it looks like this huge, beautiful, blooming rose, you know, this crazy Imperium, this government, Baron Harkonnen is a product of this system, and he's disgusting, you know, and so if this is what your system can produce, then there's something wrong with your system, you know, and like he represents the rot at the core of the Imperium. So yeah, and I thought that was interesting too, that like, okay, so the Baron is like fat and gross. Obviously he would love to be hot. Baron wants, like, he would love to be a hot young dude, okay? Because if you're a hot young dude, then you have a lot more hot sex with a lot of hot other young dudes. You don't have to just like rape people all the time. Like, it sucks. Like, he wants to be fucking hot guy, and he can't. He can't. So he has to live through Fade. And Fade. Yeah, well, I think in the Brian Herbert books, he used to be really hot and young, and like was like in shape and was a total hottie. Like, he would have been, you know, living in West Hollywood, just living like the dream of his life, you know. But like, what? West Hollywood is a gay mecca. It is a gay mecca, okay? And dudes have a great time there. And I see them walking around, and you can tell they're just having the best life ever. Like, they're just like, yes. And so, yeah, like, supposedly when he raped the Bene Gesserit guys, Helen Mohim, to get Jessica, you know, made. Jessica's his daughter. She gave him some sort of like cosmic STD that caused him to be fat and gross, and caught like, so he was like forever marred by this because he thought, he's like, yeah, if like the Bene Gesserit have to have me give my seed, I'll give it, but it's not gonna be fun. I'm gonna make it horrible for this woman. And because the only way that he can be into it is if it's a power thing. Like, he's not into women. He's not into that. So like the only way to make it interesting for him so he can get it up is if, you know, it's a power thing. And so, yeah, but she definitely punishes him and says he's got to be fat for the rest of the time. But that's not necessarily canon. That's Brian Herbert stuff. You can think about it, you can discount it, whatever. But yeah, and it's also interesting that you have like Paul, who should have been a woman, and if Paul had been born a woman, Paul could have potentially come in and be like, Paul would have been trained as a Bene Gesserit woman. Let's call him Paula. Paula would have been trained as a Bene Gesserit woman. And Paula would have been hopefully married to Fade-Rautha. And I don't know how they were planning to accomplish that, but I feel like the Bene Gesserit probably felt like they had some sort of lever that they could use to get that to happen. And they're very persuasive people. And so Paula could have been able to control Fade pretty easily because Fade would have been like in a low vibrational state, even though he's like has really awesome genetics. And like they could have controlled, like the Atreides could have essentially like controlled the Harkonnens through Paula. But that didn't happen. So now they have to kill each other. Instead of fuck each other, now they have to kill each other, you know? Because otherwise, like the Bene Gesserit would always rather have people have sex with one another than have to die. Like they value life. Like whether you agree with the Bene Gesserit's methods or not, they do value life, and they're not like about unnecessary killing. They'll kill if they have to, but it's not something that they want to do or that they try to have happen. Moving on to our next question, Michael Erickson asks, does Jessica have access to both Romalo's genetic and previous Reverend Mother's other memory, or just the previous Reverend Mother's? I'm not sure. I would think she definitely has the other previous Reverend Mothers in there. But I would think that she would have maybe, like, she might not have, like, full access to it, but here's echoes of it. Like, maybe she has, like, there's, like, a little bit that's, like, left, you know? I would think about it that way. So I would say she probably has a little bit of that, but I don't know how deep it goes. But maybe it goes all the way. You know, I don't know. It could be. It's a lot, though. When you get that many other consciousnesses within your consciousness, you kind of lose count. You know, I feel like you'd just be like, whatever. Just like, it would be like a fractal, you know, where just like, just gets bigger and bigger, and it's like the same pattern over and over again. It'd be insane. Bebe Leche asks, do you think Robot or Space Brain would join us for a session before the end, perhaps the grand finale? I can't wait for Watchmen. I'm not sure about having Space Brain and Robot in. Maybe. T-Bone, how do you feel about Space Brain and Robot?
These are down and dirty.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Maybe if the universe lines up. We live in a universe of possibilities. Anything could happen. Tetratic asks, Fade Harkonnen always seems to talk about, Frank Herbert always seems to talk about awareness. I would argue that becoming too aware can render you susceptible to feelings of pointlessness and worthlessness. How do you and Frank Herbert reconcile high levels of awareness in menial laborers such as us? Well, there's absolutely, like, the greater you expand your awareness, and it's something that, like, I would think about just, like, dissolving into larger dimensions, if that makes any sense. I know it's paradoxical, but, like, I feel like it's a good way to explain it. You dissolve into larger dimensions. But then once you get to this dimension and this level of awareness, then, like, after a while, Beans? You get off of there. Oh, she's in trouble now. Oh. Okay, sorry, guys. Beans is gonna get in trouble. Jumped on Leto's cage. Baron Von Beans over there trying to start a coup. Can't believe that bitch. Man, she just, like, jumped all the way up there. Anyways, okay. Sorry about that. So you're at one level of awareness, and then, like, once you're here, after a while, then you're like, oh, and then you kind of try to push a little bit further. You know, push a little bit further, push a little bit further. But it is true that the further and further you push out, kind of like the lonelier and lonelier it gets to a degree. And it also is like, you just notice more, and like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You know, once you see something, you can't unsee it. And so, and a lot of these awarenesses bring it's a double-edged sword. It's like you become aware of things, but you become more aware of things, and you're like, oh my god, like this shit's fucking crazy. It trips you out. Like the bigger your awareness gets, like the more you get tripped out on stuff. Where you're just like, oh no, like you have to see like all the flaws, all of the darkness, all of the shittiness, and you have to kind of find an acceptance with it. And so I feel like that's kind of how awareness goes. Is like you get a little bit bigger, and then you go, oh no, this shit's fucked up, and then you finally find acceptance with that, and then when you find acceptance with it, then you can kind of push out a little bit further, and then you see more shit, and you're like, oh no, and then you kind of get used to that one, and then you keep going. And I think that like, okay, so you're saying like, oh well, we're menial laborers, and like yes, like a lot of us are menial laborers. Like we do our little jobs and we make our little pennies to afford our little houses with our little foods, and and then meanwhile you have like fucking 1% who has like how much, like the 1% of the population has how much of the world's money? Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent that.
Okay, well, Tyson normally knows this stuff. He's usually on it, but his brain is still coming online right now because he's tired. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so, but the thing is like, don't let that, just because you're not some top whatever person, like everyone needs to work on their consciousnesses, no matter what kind of a laborer you are, whether you're, whatever you do. It doesn't matter. High, low, and in between. Like we all need to expand our awareness. And expanding your awareness helps you do whatever job you do better. It helps you to learn what you're here to do. And that's like kind of the big thing is when you expand your awareness, you become more aware of yourself. And mainly you need to become aware of yourself. It's not like everyone thinks, oh, I want to expand my awareness so I become aware of everything that's going on around me. And I think that it's a better way to like try to become more aware of yourself. And by becoming more aware of yourself, then that's a better way to like reach awarenesses about things. Because when you figure your own shit out, and it's a process. It's like you constantly just push a little bit further and find out more and more about yourself. But then you find out what you're really good at, and you find like ways to be able to contribute that back to the earth, and just contribute that back. And it may or may not be through your actual job. Like maybe it's you raise a child right, like that's a fucking huge service to the world. Is just like raising a decent child, So it's like we all find our places and our ways of contributing. It may not be through what you do as your job, it could be through anything. As long as you just contribute in some way, then you'll feel better and you'll feel fulfilled. And like, that's kind of what helps. That's what helps with the awareness. Like when you kind of get freaked out and you're like, oh, this is too much. And you also get to a point too, though, where you're like, you were saying feelings of pointlessness where you're like, well, what does it matter? It's all fucked, like, what does it matter? But you can take that perspective and that like initial thought that seems very nihilistic, and then you can kind of turn it, that perspective, into, well, if nothing matters, then like, I can do anything. Like I can do whatever. Like nothing matters. Like it's like a burden that's lifted off of you when you find out that nothing matters and that this is all fucking ridiculous and what a joke, It's like you can, I don't know. I feel like I say this all the time. It's just like Trump's president. Like anything is possible. Like if that guy could fucking become president, anything is possible. And I feel like that is a positive thing. Like I could do whatever. We're living in wild times where weird shit can totally happen. So now is the time to put your wish out in the universe and try to make that shit happen. Because it's like right now, it's like perfect time for that sort of weird shit. Chaos times. It's a ladder. Listen to Littlefinger. He knows what's up. All right, moving on. Candy for Crows Simmer asks, I loved all the dualities of this section. Paul's terrible purpose versus Phaedrus's let them see this line. Jessica's link to the past, now with a mind to save the Fremen by any means necessary, versus Paul's link to the future and the jihad. It seems like every turn there's another battle for Paul, which made it even more appropriate he called his mom his enemy as well. I'm sure there are many more such suggestions. That's also a really good thing to point out, is that Jessica is now linked with the Fremen's past in a way that Paul is not. And then Paul is linked with the Fremen's future in a way that Jessica is not. So like they both encapsulate like the past and the future for these fucking people. Are there any more you can talk about of note. I also liked the question about hands a couple sessions ago to me that seemed like a throwaway line in the book. It reminded me of my travels through Israel. I learned about Hamsa hands, which talk about the good look they give to people and protecting them from the evil eye. I recommend others check it out if you're interested. Amazing job, CBG 19. Okay. Yes. Okay, so actually, hilariously enough, I'm wearing a Hamsa hand right now on my earrings. I got these when I went to my like I was searching for all my Bene Gesserit stuff, and I went to this one shop downtown in the Fashion District in LA, and it was like this Indian store. It was like all this Indian stuff, like tons of this Indian man was just selling like all this crazy Indian clothes and jewelry and accessories, and it was all like super cheap and like crazy, and it wasn't like nice stuff. It was like really mass produced stuff, but it was cool and it was really exotic looking. And that guy was so helpful. He was like, "Oh, have you seen this? Have you seen this?" Like he was like totally there for me. We had a great time. I spent a lot of money there on a lot of different stuff that I've been wearing for Dune Club. And yeah, these earrings are what came from there. And I'm learning more about the Hamsa hand too, which is also the hand of Fatima. So it's like got Middle Eastern, Islamic, also like yeah, it's just the whole thing. These like little good luck hands, because then you have the evil eye. You've seen the evil eye before. Anyways, um, yeah, I'm with you. I'm really into symbols. I get like really hung up on symbols. So, any other connections that I can think of? Well, I do think it's really, I wish I had stressed this more, is, the reason why Paul didn't want to kill Jamis, or Jamis, whatever his name is because, like, that guy knew that, Paul saw that this guy knew that Paul and his mother were not being truthful, that they were manipulating the Fremen, and Paul saw that he was right, and he does not want to have to kill a guy who is being honest and true and like is right, and that sucks that he has to do that because like it's not the truth. And then when he does kill Jonas, it's like everyone's like, oh wow, he really is the one, and like Paul feeling like a fraud, like he feels dirty using the Missionaria Protectiva against the Fremen like this. Like he's not for it. Like yeah, he's been trained in the Bene Gesserit ways, but he's not necessarily down for all their methods. Like he has that, his mother calls it his instinct for rightness. He has this instinct for rightness. And so, yeah, like they're just killing that guy. That's why he's like, my mother is my enemy, is because she's the one who's like using the Bene Gesserit or the Missionaria Protectiva is the Bene Gesserit, is using all these techniques without feeling bad about it, is just going along with it, like fuck that guy, like sorry kid, like we fuck that guy, and like he's like, but this guy, like he was right, and like Jessica's like, nah bro, fuck that guy, like it was us or him, fuck that guy. And so because she's got that attitude, that motherly, instinctive, like I gotta save my fucking baby, I don't give a fuck who dies in the process, because she has that coldness about her, yeah, he's disturbed by it, and he thinks that like, yeah, she's my enemy because she doesn't feel bad about what she's doing, and she should feel bad about what she's doing, because what we're doing is fucked up. What we're doing is fucked up, like, Paul is such a sweetheart. He's so nice. But yeah, I wish I had been more like, I don't know. That one took me a while to digest. Like, that's the thing about this book. I keep having more awarenesses about this book as I go along, because I forced myself to teach a class about it. So I really do have to think about it. Like, I really have to think about it a lot. And sometimes it takes me a few weeks to really get the full impact of something, and this is something where I feel like last week when I talked about it, I wasn't as ready to talk about it as I am now, because I've had a lot more time to think about it. And I'm like, oh, I see it. Okay, all right. Moving on. Abigail asks, how does the siege work? How does architecture let the Fremen be without their hoods and nose plugs? You're doing a fantastic job. Keep up the good work. Okay, so the siege is like this cave system, and it's carved out of all this rock. I think probably some of it's underground too. And that they have like seals. I'm sure they have water seals where it's all sealed off. and that they can go without their still suits. So it's like the only place that they can do that. But there's a lot of people who live in the Sietches who are able to like chill most of the time without a still suit on, but they all still have them. But yeah, and then while in the Sietch, it's also the Sietch has its own kind of dew collecting like moisture traps. Like they have all that shit built in. Like they know what they're doing. So they have reclamation areas for them to like reclaim all the moisture that's lost through everyone breathing in these cave systems. Mario asks, a really cool outfit tonight. Thank you. Thank you. My question is more a curiosity about the Count Fenring, who I really liked. Do you think he's using his humming language all the time, also when talking to the Baron? Or is he throwing shit at the Baron in the middle of the sentences? Or directing comments to Lady Fenring? Is he throwing shit at the Baron? Yeah, okay. So let's talk about Casimir Fenring. He's so cool. He's such a cool like. This is what I love about Frank Herbert. Is Frank Herbert is able to put in some fucking character that you barely know, that you barely get to see, but like you just want to know so much more about. You're just like, that guy is fucking cool. Like I know that guy has cool stories. Like I want to know more about this fucking freak show, like this fucking weirdo. I love Count Fenring and Lady Margot. I love those two. They're so nuts. And I think that partly he is using his humming language where he's talking to you, but is stumbling through it. Like just it's like it keeps you really off balance when someone does that. Like you're constantly having to shift like orally to kind of figure out what they're saying, and like by him stopping in front of words and like and waiting, it like gives you this sense of anticipation, like where you're like, hurry it up. And like it's disruptive. Like the reason why he does it is that it's very disruptive to people who are trying to listen to him. Also, he is using it to send signals to Lady Margot. They have a humming language, because you notice she did it too. She goes, oh, it's very interesting. You know, like they're totally sending weird private signals to one another with which uhs and ums and ahs they put where. And oh yeah, but he's totally talking shit like to the Baron to his face. He's totally talking shit to the Baron to his face. But he's saying it in such a way that, like, A, it's hard to catch in the first place because of the way he talks. And second, it's said in such a perfect way to where you can't really call him out on it. Because it's like, wait, did you just say I'm an asshole? And by the time you're trying to, like, figure out how to call him on it, he's already gone past. So this guy's like a fucking, I mean, not only is he a deadly, like, actual assassin, he's like a verbal assassin as well. And so, yeah, he's fucking awesome, and this whole scene was really awesome. I loved him talking to the Baron. I love that when he gets in that cone of silence with the Baron, he immediately stops the ums and ahs, like immediately. Like he's doing it on purpose. Like he shows specifically that he does this publicly on purpose to fuck with people. And, but yeah, when he's talking to the Baron, it's like, are you listening to me, fat man? Like you better fucking figure it out, dude, because we're gonna fucking like bend you over if you don't stop what you're doing. Like you better stop. Like he's just so like beating the Baron around, you know. And I love when the Baron looks up at the Atreides painting of the old Duke and the head of the bull that killed him, and he's just like, ugh, like maybe these talismans kind of suck. He's like, I thought this was fucking awesome, but like now it's just making me feel creepy and haunted, and like he's getting ready to fucking talk. Like he's in the ring with the Emperor. Like the Baron is absolutely playing a fucking game with the Emperor because he wants, and like the Emperor's a wild bull, dude, but he wants to be the Matador and like take this bull down and then like have his bull take over, you know? And then also Fade's getting ready to go into the ring as a gladiator. So it's like, yeah, like it's totally echoes the creepy, I don't know, it's like creepy to have, hey, here's a guy who's trying to fuck with some wild animal in an arena and he got fucking killed for it, you know? And so now they're doing the same things and it's like, oh fuck, when am I gonna get gored by the bull? When is it my fucking turn to get gored, you know? Um, Bobby McIntyre asks, it's too bad, even though most Fremen know Jessica was pregnant with Arya, that they still treat her like a witch because they can't understand how a child speaks like an adult. Yes, Bobby, this is from everybody. This is from session 10, so I'm not going to really talk about this one because, yeah, this is session 10 stuff. In session 10, we get to meet Alia, Paul's little sister. When we go to book 3, it's a 2 years later situation, so we're like 2 years later. And yeah, Alia's causing some problems. So, but we'll talk about that next time. Epileptic Tiger says, no question, just a comment. I knew a Shaolin monk that read Dune and said the Reverend Mother ceremony was his favorite part, partly because he wanted to be able to control his body that much, and partly because he wanted to be able to download his knowledge into someone else before he dies. Yeah, that's like totally, I could totally see monks being into that. Yeah, because this is like, I mean, like, monks and priestesses are kind of the same, you know, like they're kind of the same. They're people who are like dedicated to spiritual work, and meditative work and things like that, and work on yourself. You know, it's like it's yeah. So I could totally see a Shaolin monk totally being into Dune, and I don't know. It was just I talked to a monk once who he wasn't a Shaolin monk. I can't remember. I think he was like a was it Buddhist or Hindu? Buddhist. I think he's like a Buddhist monk. But yeah, he was telling me that when he was living in the, I don't know, monkery. What is it? Like I can't think of the word for it. There's nunnery for nuns, but in the monk place where they all hang out, he saw some guy in there who would like make his own little concoction every day, like this drink. Like he would make it out of like plants and stuff, and like just drink this drink every day, and like that's all he ate. Like he didn't eat food. He just made this drink for himself, and he sustained himself on this fucking concoction every day. And he was like, it was fucking nuts. Like he was like, I don't even know what that fucking guy was doing. I don't know how that shit works. Because I think that like a lot of like those monk places are like a place of silent reflection for yourself. It's like you're isolated in yourself there. And so because like a lot of them are isolated from the world, and so you just have a bunch of these fucking weird spiritual guys who are doing these weird spiritual fucking things on themselves every day, who are just like in it every day, like focusing on like this fucking spiritual bullshit. And like, I'm sure they achieve all sorts of weird fucking things because you just have these weird dudes isolated by themselves doing weird things in their rooms. You know, they do that instead of mess around with girls. So it's a life. It's a life choice. Yeah, monks are interesting. All right, Jake. Jake has a question. Why did Jessica tell the Fremen she was pregs with Leto's daughter when she knew what was about to happen? If she loved her child and the Duke, wouldn't she want to protect her at any possible dangerous moment? Well, okay, I don't think that Jessica knew exactly what was getting ready to happen to her. I think that she was scared for her daughter, absolutely. I mean, she does at one point, she's like, do I have the right to do this? I mean, she does ask herself that question, but she's like, I'm already committed. Like I've committed myself to this path, and I have to think about Paul, and Paul is here now. And I have to think about his needs, and I have to think about my needs before I have to think of the needs of this unborn consciousness within me, because they don't have needs yet. They're just inside me. Like Paul and I, we need to be here. And if we're not here, then we're going to get kicked out, and then she could die anyways. Like, because the thing is Alia is a part of her. And if Jessica's life is in danger, well, then her life is in danger. So for Jessica to be able to even have this child and give her a life, she has to do this. And she just doesn't see another way. She does not see another way. Like the Fremen are like, we need to know that you're with us and that you're not a fraud, because there's all these like steps to figuring out whether she's really the Bene Gesserit of prophecy or whether she's just some fraud who's like manipulating them. Because they're not completely stupid. Like they're watching. Like they're like, we need to make sure. And this is the only way for them to like, for her to make sure, for them to make sure, you know, because at the end, Stilgar looks at her and he's like, now we know you cannot be false. You know, he looks at her and she's just like, what? Like, she's just like fucking tripped out. And he is like, now we know, you know, and like, I love the thought that comes to her where she's like, oh, this like, how beneficent of these people to bring me in, like on this warmth, like this oneness, like, I like that she calls him beneficent for this action that they've done and like how cute that is. And now like she really is one of them. Like you cannot be false. Like we know you cannot be false because now you are a Reverend Mother. You have all the, you are like they downloaded a new consciousness into her that she now is a part of her, that she will be changed by forever. She'll never be regular Jessica ever again. She will always be Jessica and all of the Reverend Mothers of the Fremen people throughout, generations and generations through planet through planet through planet. And so, yeah, so she just takes the chance. She has a gamble. She has to take it. It sucks. She does it. And it, it kind of works out, but it kind of doesn't. There's a price to be paid. You have to give something to get something. And she definitely like sacrificed her daughter for this, and it doesn't work out perfectly for everybody. And there is a price to be paid for what she does. And I mean, and that's what I love about Frank Herbert is that whenever somebody does reach for something more, they do have to make some sort of sacrifice of themselves, And so this was hers, and it works out for a while, but eventually, the past kind of comes back to haunt them, and it does become a bad idea what happens. Alyssa asks, why hasn't Paul's eyes changed yet? It seems like he's been exposed to a lot of spice. The eyes be bad happened like I think over a few because I did read session 10 and like I think in session 10 they were saying that his eyes were he was assuming the eyes of a bad, but he didn't have them fully yet. So I think it's something where you really do like it takes a few years to become fully addicted to it. Like there's different levels of addiction to the spice. And so for you to get that saturated with it and so saturated that your eyes change color, you really have to be ingesting it in mass quantities every day for a long time. And yeah, and so it just takes a while. It takes a while because the Emperor takes the spice, but he doesn't have the eyes of Ibad. Like he doesn't take it that much. He just takes it just enough to prolong his life. He's not like saturating himself with it. And because it is said, like Irulan is talking about his dad is like 70 something, but like he looks like his mid-30s or maybe he's 37 or something. So, I mean, like he's taking enough to where it slows down his lifespan like that. Although 10,000 years in the future, our lifespans will be naturally longer. In Heretics of Dune, we get to meet Miles Tegg, who's fucking awesome. And he's kind of like Duke Leto of Duke Leto. If Duke Leto and Thufir Hawat, got to be one dude in the future, like it would be this fucking guy, Miles Tegg. And in it, he's really old. Like he's like super old, but they never say exactly how old he is. But I get the feeling that it's like 200 to 300 years old, somewhere in that range, like 2 to 3, somewhere in there. I would feel like that's how old he is. So yeah, their lifespans are longer in Dune, but then taking the spice it makes it like even longer. But that's really cool to think about, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you guys think about it, but if you look at like the mortality rates of people even like 100 years ago, it's like we're living such like exponentially longer and longer and longer lives, and it's funny to me, I feel like my Zennial, whatever the fuck, I don't know, I'm like an 80s baby, so it's like I'm not really a millennial, but I'm not really generation, X, it's like generation Y or something. But it's like, yeah, we're totally going to live like longer than our parents, and our parents are living, I mean, some of them are not, but some of them are living pretty long. If you take care of yourself, you can live a long time. And if you eat well, you can live a long time. And yeah, we're going to be like living like way longer than our parents and our grandparents, I think. If you take care of yourself. So that's like a really crazy thought, because I think about that. Like, I know like my grandparents and stuff, they're always like, grandparents are like, you need to grow up, oh, when are you going to stop dressing like a kid, whatever. But it's like, well, dude, when you were like 20, you had to like have a mortgage and a baby, and you were married by the time you're 20, and like then you died when you were like 50 or 60. Like, it's not like that anymore. Like, we have such longer lifespans that we have time to be assholes for a lot longer. We don't have to like grow up so fast. Like, we can your 30s or your new 20s, like just fucking kick it, man. Until you have a baby, then like things change. But if you don't have a baby, and a lot of people, that's the thing, a lot of people aren't having babies early anymore. People are taking longer and longer and longer to have children. But I also think that's a symptom of having a longer lifespan because you don't have to get it done sooner. You can wait, and it's totally fine because you have a little bit of a longer lifespan than the people before you. That really went off on a weird kick. All right, Casey Puffy Dugan says, do you think there's a symbolic component to the spice agony ritual of the pagan maiden, mother, and crone in the form of the Sayadina candidates, Chani, Jessica, and Romallo as the incumbent Sayadina/Reverend Mother? Then, as Romallo and Jessica link minds, Alia becomes the maiden, especially when Romallo dies, Jessica becomes the crone. Jessica sees her future child in her arms. Chani sees her future child in her arms and herself becoming the mother, especially if her and Paul are conceiving that child that very night, and Alia becomes the maiden to come. The emphasis on Bene Gesserit's worship of the Great Mother and their witch associations are fascinating to me and makes me wonder if pagans and Wiccans were on the Orange Catholic Council. Lol. Go Team 19. Love your sunglasses, by the way. Thank you. I got them from Express. In fact, they were lost, and I got so pissed that I went back and I got another pair. So I was like, these are too good. Like, I love these. Yes. Okay. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with kind of the pagan Wiccan tradition, which is more of a mother-based worship, whereas you have like Islam, Judaism, and Christianity is like father-based, like God the Father. You worship Daddy, you know. In the pagan Wiccan, you worship Mom, like the Great Mother, you know. It's a totally different flavor. It's a totally different flavor of religion. It's a totally different flavor of worship. You know, your relationship with your mother is very different from your relationship with your father, even just growing up. So, like, your relationship to the Father God is very different from your relationship to the Mother God. And so, because there is, like, both, like we're talking about the yin and yang, it's like, that's why, like, you can't have just one religion. And that's the thing about Christianity, well, all the Abrahamic religions, where they're like, okay, we're God the Father, he's the only one, everyone can fuck off, you know. It's like, dude, chill. Like, that's how dads are. Their dads are kind of fucking crazy like that. They're like, he's super alpha, you know, like super alpha. But that's why we need these other religions that have these, like, feminine situations so that it balances everything out, you know. So paganism and Wiccanism totally balance out that father energy because it's, like, can be very oppressive. And so within this, there is just like in Christianity and in Judaism, you have, you know, God the Father, or the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So you have Father, Son, Holy Ghost. This is like the top of the Kabbalistic tree of life, right? So it's like this deal, this triangle, power triangles, power structure, in fact. In the pagan feminine tradition, you have like more of a line, but it's still the three. You have the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Okay, so maiden, mother, crone. It's a different shape, you know, and this is also like, this is why you have women are associated with the moon, is because the moon represents, you know, women have a cycle, the moon has a cycle, you know, and then when you have the waxing moon, the moon that's getting brighter and brighter and brighter, that moon is the maiden moon. When you have the full moon, that moon is the mother moon. You know, that's like the most fertile moon. That's the deal. And then it's also like the pregnant belly. You know, when you're a mother, you have a pregnant belly. Full moon is like full. And then the waxing moon is like the crone. Like in the new moon is kind of like represents both the maiden and the crone. You know, so I mean, I guess it's also a little bit of a triangle or a little bit of a circle. I would say more of like a circle or, you know, something like, anyways. So that's that. That's totally being represented in this book. It's totally represented within Reverend Mother situation because you have Chani or Cheney. Somebody was saying her name's Cheney. You have Cheney. She is consecrated as a Sayadina. So she is the new young priestess to be into the fold. Jessica, who just happens to be pregnant, is the mother who's getting ready to give birth to herself. I mean, like her awareness is giving birth to itself. And then you have the Reverend Mother who represents the crone, who is dying, who gives her knowledge to the mother and fills the mother with this ancient wisdom so that this mother can grow into the wise old woman who will be both a mother to herself and a grandmother to all of her people. Okay. So yeah, so you have Mother, Maiden, Crone totally there. But also, you're right, with Alia being included in that, you do have Chani that very night. She's in maiden mode, but she's getting ready to become a mother. You have Jessica, who's a mother, who is becoming, the wise woman. And then you have the wise woman who's dead. And then you have Alia, who's coming onto the scene, who's both the maiden and the crone. And that's what's fucking weird about Alia, is that you don't occupy both of these roles in the same fucking time. You don't occupy both of these roles, especially if we're talking about a line. Maiden is here, crone is here, okay? They're not supposed to touch. And so with Alia, she's both. She becomes the maiden and the crone. And that's why she's fucking weird and freaks everybody out. People are not down for that. People are like, nope, that is not how it's supposed to, that is not how this goes. And she freaks everybody out. So yeah, that's pretty nuts. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. So yeah, that was yeah, and there's definitely, and we were talking about the Orange Catholic Bible, the CET, the Committee of Ecumenical Translations. Every major religion was definitely there for the creation of the Orange Catholic Bible. You can read it in an appendix, The Religions of Dune, or Religions of Arrakis or something. It's in the very back of the book. Read it, and it talks about how everything is represented. So the Mother, Maiden, Crone aspect of paganism and the Great Mother worship would absolutely have been totally infused in the Orange Catholic Bible. They would have been on the council. Dante Castle asks, do you think there is more Christ biblical imagery in Dune or in Ridley Scott's Alien series? Also, spoiler, just realizing Paul's twins and passing during childbirth probably influenced the Luke Leia storyline. Yeah, I would think that there's more meaningful Christ and biblical allusions in Dune than there are in Ridley Scott's Alien series. I don't think that when Ridley Scott started the Alien series, he had any sort of like Christian themes that he originally was intending to put in there that would come to bloom later. I think that this is something that happened with Prometheus. I think that Prometheus, he didn't necessarily want to make an alien movie. He wanted to make a Ancient Aliens movie is what he wanted to make. He wanted to talk about ancient aliens, and the only way to get that done is that he had to put it within the Aliens franchise. And so that's the only way he could get this message done. So now it's got twisted with all this alien stuff, and it's gotten a little weird, but it's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with it. I just don't think that everything is going somewhere necessarily. I think that he just kind of sprinkles in some Christian imagery here and there, and he doesn't necessarily have full reasons why he's doing that. Like, I think he's just kind of putting them in there for decoration, not all of them. I mean, some of them are meaningful, but some of them are just kind of red herrings and they go nowhere and are dead ends. With Dune, however, I think that all of the religions, all the philosophies are represented here, especially the Abrahamic religions, especially Christianity. I think Paul is kind of like this, I talked about this earlier in one of our other sessions. Paul is kind of like this, like if he's a Messiah figure, just like Jesus was a Messiah. But if Jesus had actually decided, no, I'm going to become king of the Jews for real, these people are going to fucking worship me like the king that I am, and I'm going to lead them against Rome, and we're going to fucking take over Rome, and then I'm going to be the fucking emperor of Rome and the Jews, we're going to fucking take this bitch over. Like, if Jesus had done that, instead of just been like, no, I'm just going to teach about like we should love one another and we shouldn't, like, he's not, like, Jesus was so much about life that he couldn't do that, and he couldn't kill, like, he would not kill Jamas. Jesus could not kill Jamas. Okay? He wouldn't do it. He could not fucking murder somebody. Like, that's not in Jesus' thing. And so because of that, he didn't lead this crazy rebellion. He was still crowned in the end, but he was crowned with thorns instead of he chose the thorns and the pain over like an actual crown, which he could have had. He could have made that happen. And so this is a fucking fascinating tale of what if Jesus had fucking crowned himself king of the Jews and took over Rome. Like that's what this is about. It's like fucking nuts. It's fucking nuts. And then how, you know what, you have a prophet. Well, guess what? He's going to give birth to a god, you know? I mean, you have like somebody who is divine, who has this divine essence, and then he gives birth to an actual fucking living god who becomes, it's fucking crazy. It's like, woof, like what if that had happened on Earth, you know? It's so nuts. So yeah, I think that the biblical imagery in Dune and illusions and stuff are way more like they go somewhere and they go somewhere real fucking interesting. Whereas Ridley Scott's just kind of playing with these ideas, but doesn't really know what he's doing with them. Doesn't really have anything that he's really trying to say besides like I don't know, he has like Ridley Scott has this fucking beef with Christianity. Like he really is not about it, but at the same time he's obsessed with it. You know, it's like this thing where he like loves it, but like hates it at the same time. It's like this real. I don't know what happened to him growing up. I don't know where he gets this beef from. I'm sure there's some weird shit that happened to him. And so yeah, I mean, who knows? But yeah, like Frank Herbert isn't like that. Like Frank Herbert doesn't have beef with Christianity. He doesn't have beef with any religion. He's fascinated by all of them and sees them for what they are. He's able to rise above his own personal problems with them, you know, whereas Ridley Scott can't. Ridley Scott cannot rise above his personal problems with Christianity, you know, like, and so that reflects in all of his work. Whereas with Frank Herbert, he's looking at it from a higher perspective, not from a lower perspective. Like, oh, like he was really hurt by it. Like Frank Herbert, or Ridley Scott was really hurt by Christianity in some way. And it like shattered him. And that didn't, I don't know. And it didn't seem to happen with Frank Herbert. He has a lot more respect for it. John Gunther says, you were doing such a great job expanding our minds while using the vehicle of Dune. We are all smarter now. I hope so. I'm getting smarter too doing this. I know nothing of the Watchmen, but can't wait for the next journey. Would you ever consider sharing a what CBG is reading this month type of list via Patreon? Loving Meta Barons, by the way. Would not have found that without Dune Club Greater creators. Thanks. That's actually a really good idea. Although right now the only thing I'm reading is Dune. So it's like I'm not really reading a lot of other stuff. Just reading Dune. But I think that's a great idea. And I think that after Dune Club is over, I'll try to do that for you guys. It's really like, thanks for letting me know that that's something you'd be interested in. Because I think that is something that people would be interested in. And I will let you guys know what I'm reading. All right. Next question from Jack Subensky. The Dune series has this high level of anxiety attached within all of its plots and characters. Every character has a pressing agenda in their mind, and with that awareness, the tone of the novel is incredibly heavy and steadfast. Like everything is picking up speed, heading for some chaotic car crash or a sudden shock of a finish. There are very few moments of bliss or peace, rainbows after the storm. Could you share any moments the first novel or Dune series has given you something to enjoy and feel calmness in, maybe even made you chuckle? I think that Dune, for me, like every time I read it, it's very alchemical. I always change a lot when I read it. I come to new awarenesses every time I read a Dune novel by Frank Herbert. I have used them in the past to get myself out of depressions. You know, I'll be like, oh, I'm so depressed and I need to like get out of my funk and get out of my own bullshit. Because I'm just your own bullshit. You know, I just get caught up in my own bullshit. And so I'll read a Dune novel and then I'll be like, come right out of it, you know, I'll just come right the fuck out of it. So like, that's really like, that's what I get from these books, is that it gets me to, I don't know, become like, this world is so rich. This universe is so realistic and so fascinating and so interesting. And it's just like, there's just so much depth to it that I can really get lost in it. And getting lost in this universe that this man was carrying around inside of his head, it's just really, it's pleasurable in a lot of ways. And it helps me to like just see from a bigger, like a higher perspective. And definitely doing this. Like I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Let me know if you guys have noticed this. Like, have you noticed any weird synchronicities with yourself while reading this book? Like, have you noticed like things in your life that are happening that coincide with kind of things that are happening in this book even? Because I feel like, because I had a friend texting me, he was like, oh my God, I'm doing some Kwisatz Haderach stuff. I'm like, he's got this company and he's like making this ridiculous company and it's like super awesome to watch him go. And like personally, yeah, like I mean, every time Paul or Jessica has some new awareness, like I'm like, I feel like I get so tired, you know. I'm just like, Jesus, this book's like wearing me out with the awarenesses that it's giving me. It's like so much. And it's funny, like I've already read session 10. I've been thinking about what I want to write for it, and like in it, like I was saying, it takes place 2 years later. And so, you know, we see Paul 2 years later, and like he's just like kind of this man who's unstuck from time, you know, who's just like, is this the past, the present, or the future? I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know. I am like, he's just kind of bobbling around constantly, like on this wave of time, and just has no fucking clue. And man, I'll be damned if I am not a woman fucking unstuck from time right now. I have been sleeping like a fucking Fremen. I go to bed at 6 when the sun comes up, and I wake up at like 4. Like I've been sleeping 10 hours. It's crazy. And so I get up, I see the sun for a few hours, and then it goes back down. I've been debating whether to make the loop or not, where you just stay up progressively later and later and later. But I can't do that because Dune Club right now. So it's like, oh fuck, like I don't know. I'm gonna have to wait till maybe October to do it. But I'm been steady at 6, so it's like, okay, I guess I'm here now. And I also do feel like that's why I got the glasses on. I'm just like I'm kind of a mess, like to be honest. I'm kind of a mess, and like Paul's kind of a mess too. Like he's doing it and he's making shit happen, you know, but he's just like, what the fuck is going on around me? Like shit is nuts. And I feel the same way. I'm just
reading Dune like to living like Fremen.
Yeah, I'm living like a Fremen. I'm living like Paul. I feel like a woman unstuck from time. I don't know what the fuck is happening. I'm just gonna roll with it. Like, I mean, just fucking Paul just fucking rolls with it, and I'm just rolling with it. And so I'm just doing this thing. But and also thank you guys. You guys like my Reverend Mother outfit I came up with for you guys, since Jessica was becoming Reverend Mother. I felt like I needed to dress up for that one. So we have some other great outfits coming up for the next 3. We only have 3 left, guys. We got 3 sessions left. It's insane. So this month is our last month. It's been like so much fun. It's been so much fun, and I want to thank you guys for coming with me on this journey. You guys, this journey through the wasteland. Like I'm leading this small band of people on the internet through the deserts of Dune, you know, through Arrakis. It's been like it's a dream come true. It's a great dream come true, and it's so much fun. And I can't wait to. I also can't wait to talk about Watchmen with you guys. Watchmen is so fucking relevant to what's going on right now in our fucking world. It's bananas. It's fucking bananas. It's just like, oh my god, your face is gonna fucking melt. Like if you've never read Watchmen, like get fucking ready, because now's the time, baby. And you are gonna your fucking face is gonna melt off. I'm telling you, it's insane. And it's gonna pop off. It's gonna be so much fun. So this has been great. Get your friends involved. Tell them it's gonna be happening soon. Watchmen Club. It'll be here soon. Gotta finish up a couple things and we'll launch our pre-sale. But that's it for today. We've already reached 5. Sorry, Twitch peeps. I ran a little late. I'm a little loosey-goosey. Next week we'll get back to our questions. Vicky isn't here. We've been having just me and T doing this, so not only are we a fucking mess, but Vicky isn't even here to help us. So we're just like fucking making this happen as best we can. Making it happen as best we can. But we did it! We did it, baby! Fucking did it. Dune Club Session 9, live Q&A. We'll see you guys next week, Sunday, for Session 10. Same fucking Dune time. Same Dune channel. You guys have a good one. Florida people, be safe. Be safe, Florida people.